The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why they actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations. That's forming a
Good evening and welcome back. This is Lowe's Moore, and I want to say welcome from the Blueprint podcast. We're excited to be back with you guys on another Sunday evening. This is amazing. I just want to pause for a moment. I want to digress for a moment. And I don't really, I've been pretty busy. When you have your grandkids on Thursday and Friday, I had my grandkids on Thursday and Friday all day. So that's like you're zoned in, you're zoomed in to what they're doing and stuff like that, and watching the things on TV they want to watch, and just being pop, and then on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, jump up, get a haircut, go to a wedding. For Friday night, man, me and my wife go to a comedy show. And so I just haven't, other than to watch a basketball game, maybe, I really haven't even tuned in into what's going on in the world, And just so happened this afternoon, I was talking to my son-in-law, and he started talking about the things that happened in Wisconsin, things that happened over in Buffalo. Then something was just on about a church shooting in California. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but these situations are not good, man. And I just want to kind of say to all the people in those cities and to all the families, man, we are praying for you guys. I mean, this is really getting a little out of hand with what's going on particularly in America. I mean, things are happening all over the world, but it's happening at home, and it's not good. And you're just looking at what's going to happen next. So I really want to let you know that we are praying for all the families that have lost loved ones and those who are injured. Man, we pray for speedy recovery, and we're praying for these cities, man. If we never needed to come together, man, we need to come together now. I was studying something earlier today, and one of the most powerful remnants, or one of the most powerful weapons we possess, is the weapon of love, right? And I'm not just talking about physical love, but I'm talking about unconditional love. I mean, it takes unconditional love to transform violence, all these negative hatred things that are going on in the world today, right? We all got to live here. We all got to be here, right? And so it's important that we respect each other's culture, each other's gender, each other's choices. We need to respect those things, and we need to show more love. And so I just wanted to start out like that, man, because like, wow, somebody asked me, man, what's the world coming to now? What's America coming to? And this is not good. And we need, again, I have the remnant for me is love, right? But we need to do something to address these issues. So again, welcome to the Blueprint. I am excited to be back with you guys on another weekend. And, I'm about to drop this ball, right? I got my seed here in my hand. This is my seed. I drop it in the pond. I'm expecting the ripple effect of this show. I'm expecting somebody to be blessed, somebody to gain some information, some wisdom, some knowledge, some insight, right? On the show. So let's get rolling. And I want to start out with my book of the week. Yeah, this is Coach Bill Musselman Played with Coach Bill Musselman. At one time, he was the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers back in the day. And, Bill Musselman, this guy was, we talk about mad science, the guy with the glasses on, and he's making all these chemical things in the, in the lab and everything like that. Well, Bill Musselman, man, was a mad scientist basketball coach. I mean, you have to know Coach Musselman, man. He would come into every practice with like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 encyclopedias of plays and defenses and strategies. And that book right there, Obsession. I mean, it's hard to get, but it's around. I think you can get it for a few dollars, man. It is an awesome read about a guy, man. And even my guest tonight, when I asked him to come on the show, and I've known him from his history of coaching, and I understand his passion and love for the game of basketball. I thought instantly, right away, I thought about Bill Musselman and this book, Obsession. Right. And eventually I played for Coach Musselman in the Albany Patroons. We went 70. I think we went 70 and 10. Of course, Phil Jackson, them and the Chicago Bulls broke that percentage mark when they went 73 and 10. And then all of a sudden the Golden State Warriors come back and they break it, and they were 73 and whatever that number was. But Coach Musselman, he was obsessed with the game, right? He loved the game. So if you can, look that book up, get it, great read, right? Coach Bill Musselman, rest in peace, Coach. He passed away a little while ago, but his son, Eric Musselman, I think he's the coach of Arizona. Right? They went pretty far this year in the NCAAs. His son Eric is just as intense as he is, right? And has a passion for the game as well. And then so this week's word of the week, obsess, or obsession, obsess. Just being obsessed with something. I don't know what you guys if you're obsessed with something. Some people are obsessed with sports. Some people are obsessed with music. Some people are obsessed with eating. So there's a lot of way to be obsessed. Hopefully it's positive. If you're obsessed with something, hopefully it's something positive. In order to be successful, man, you have to be obsessed. You have to be driven, right? It says preoccupied with something to the extent that it's almost a madness. Hey, I tell you, that's how I was. Up early in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, late at night, 12 o'clock at night. I'm in the playground, man. Some mornings I'm up shoveling the snow and chopping the ice so that I can get out there. I was obsessed. I was obsessed, and so yeah. Find something to get it obsessed about. Make sure it's positive, and also make sure you get blessed, and make sure the thing that you're doing is a blessing to somebody else. And so, and then on my Hill and Pierce Harper affirmation quote moment, right? It says, I can't really see. I know there's something else on the bottom of that.
The only limits in our life are those we impose on ourselves.
Is that what it is?
I'm almost sure.
Okay. It says the only limits in our lives are those we impose on ourselves. Right? No limits, only the ones you impose on yourself. Hey, my coach, I try to tell my coach that, right? Is the one we oppose on ourselves. My coach used to impose some things on me. He's like, that's too far to shoot the ball. You got to get closer, and he used to say that every other shot. I thought I said to get closer. Well, I believe I had no limits. I believe my shooting range was limitless. Right? I always believe my skills are limitless, right? Yeah. You got to think that way. You got to think outside the box, and so, the only limits we have is the ones we impose on ourselves. And here's a good one from me. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah. You don't shoot the ball, you ain't getting no shots. So again, you know, let's jump right over into my music, right? Billy Preston and Streeta, you know, Sarita, Billy Preston and Sarita. With you, I'm born again. I know my wife loved that song. Come bring me your softness. Comfort me through all this madness. Woman, don't you know with you, I'm born again. Oh, man. I like that song. And then my movie of the week. Right here's my movie of the week, and it's called Fast Break, and that was one of the theme songs of Fast Break. It's an old movie. It's a funny movie. It's about basketball. Man, it is. Hey, it's a flashback. You know, go to the archives and get that movie out and enjoy it. Hey, you know, here's the crazy thing is, man, when you look at a movie in the past, man, you say, man, that was a black market movie. but when you see movies today, man, you see the technology, all that stuff in it. But this was just simple and to the point, and you will enjoy it because it has a strong message too. So that's my music and movie of the week. And I want to do a quick shout out here, right? I want to say shout out to Monica. What is it, Yvette or Monica? Which one? Which one you want me to call? Yvette or Monica? Monica, thanks for watching. Number one fan. Woo! Oh man. But I think I got a shout out in here, right? Another shout out to the nurses. I think I know a few of these. I know a lot of these nurses up here. Well, of course, there go my son right there. There's Melanie. There's Tanya. Who am I? Denise. Ooh, there's a lot of nurses on here. I know a lot of nurses. Bridget. Oh my God. Deidre, Bridget. I just want to say happy nurses week, right? You need more than a week, but because you guys, man, I have to give you guys an awesome shout out, right? I got to give you an awesome shout out because through this last couple of years, man, you guys have been amazing. You put yourself in harm's way, and I'm sure every family has been appreciative of the care that you've given their family members. So, yeah, Melanie, yeah, I remember Melanie. My son used to call Melanie all the time, man. We didn't even know, but anyway, Melanie's great. First Lady, Emmanuel. So yeah, let's jump in. I got another shout out. I think there's one more shout out up there. Yeah, and this is Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And I used to wonder why. I used to take my kids to the doctor, Teresa and I, and going to that same doctor when you got 4 kids, same doctor all the time. And during the examination, they used to ask my kids how they felt. How do you feel? You feel any different? You thinking about anything? I used to wonder why. You know, out of nowhere he would ask those questions, but I realized that part of the examination is not just the physical body that needs to be checked, but also your mental side needs to be checked as well. I mean, even when I go to the doctor always asks me, how I'm feeling as well mentally. So that's important too. But this is mental health awareness. We are becoming more and more aware of the things that people may be having problems in regards to, what's on their mind. So this is an important month. This is an important cause, right? And now many of the actors and athletes and business people that have struggled with mental health issues, and so we need to be aware of it. Become aware of what you are thinking, and also become aware of the children in your children and what they're thinking, because this last 2 years has been very stressful, right? And if you got kids in school, man, you have no idea what they're going through and what they're feeling. So you better keep your eye out, right, on what's happening and listen. So, and then without further ado, we're gonna jump right in here. We got to highlight.
Next week.
Oh, how can I forget next week? Next week we got the amazing Mount Vernon Isaiah Cousins, played at Mount Vernon High School, University of Oklahoma, and man, he's been back and forth between Europe and G League, and man, he should have he got drafted by the Sacramento Kings, right? He was part of the Utah Jazz, and man, he's young. He's 28 years old, man. He's going to be working out over the next 3 months, man. Looking to go back overseas and looking to get back into the league, man. So we're going to talk about that next week and talk about, man. We're going to talk about a little bit of basketball today, but next week we got Isaiah, and then after Isaiah we got he looked like a doctor. I wanted to call him Dr. Anthony Johnson, but we got Anthony Johnson with us, man, and we've been just serving you for a long time. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we realized that, man, I had been 27 years with the Boys and Girls Club, and then probably another 5 or 6 years as a youth worker with the Boys and Girls Club. He's been in the Boys and Girls Club movement for over 30 years. He's been involved with youth development. We're going to talk about him, and we're going to talk about youth development. We're in the process of doing some partnership on and some training. We're trying to put together some training on the overview of youth development. And we've been in it for a long time. I was a part of the Boys and Girls Club over 50 years, right? And we're going to do some very nice things. Looking forward to these next couple of shows. So without further ado, let's get these highlights in and let's get rolling.
Tough kid who's a good kid is worth gold, okay? Meaning somebody you would trust. I used to say to our players, the greatest thing somebody could say about you is, can they trust you? Meaning if I leave you alone with my daughter, or I leave you in the house, or I leave you in my office, or I leave money on the table, or can I trust you? Forget about money or any of that stuff, but what about, can I trust you to go to class? Can I trust you to work on your game when we're not watching you? Can I trust you to go to the weight room? Can I trust you to get up in the morning? That kind of stuff. That's the best thing somebody can say about you as a coach. If they can say to you that they trust you, if they call on your behalf someday to get you in Europe or get you a job, if your coach can say something like that, you're dependable, he trusts you, you don't understand. That's a hell of a compliment. There's an old school guy that told me, you know how many layups we took just now in the last hour? Took a lot of layups. If you make your layups and your free throws in a game, you win. You know that? We could talk until we're blue in the face, all the coaches, about rebounding, playing defense, all these different stats. Do you know in a game, if you make your layups and your free throws, you'll probably win that game? It's true. So free throws, we were number 1 in the country one year, okay? And we were number 7 in the country. We make our guys come in every day, shoot 200 a day. But then in practice, we do pressure free throw drills. The number 1 thing that coaches look for most of the time, even NBA guys. Who said it? Give that guy a hand. He said toughness. Now, you give me, I don't think anyone, well, I'll be careful. I'm in the Hall of Fame. You give me 5 tough SOBs, and I'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime, and we'll have a chance. Forget position, forget size. Take the 5 toughest guys, and you got a chance.
Coach Bobby Gonzalez.
I forgot about that stuff, Lowe's. That was back in the day for 5-star up at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, a little flashback. So welcome to the Blueprint.
Well, Lowe's, I'm honored to be here with yourself, your wife, Patrice. Thank you for having me. First, just to kind of mention a few things that you already touched on, just to kind of quickly touch on them. first I would just want to say that Isaiah Cousins is a young man that I followed and watched, and I'm excited he's going to be coming on your show. I'll have to watch the show. I followed him as a player, love him, great kid. Also, you mentioned Eric, Coach Musselman. I got to meet him once, and I take it as a huge compliment that you thought of me when you because he, like you said, he's a legend. I know his son Eric, as you said, is doing great now in college as a college coach, and Bill Musselman was a legend. I met him through Pete Gillen, who I worked for 6 years, and Coach Muss was, I'm glad I got the chance to spend a few minutes with him. And then lastly, on not such a good note, but something important that you touched on, Lowe's, is, I'm originally from upstate. I've been in New York for 30 years now, so no one really knows that. And I went to college up in Buffalo. I'm sure we'll get into later about, education. But that thing that happened in Buffalo is just such a tragedy. And I understand, it's race related or racially motivated or whatever. And 10 people lost their lives. And I've been on Jefferson Avenue. It's, predominantly African-American neighborhood. It's just very sad, just tragic, Lowe's, to hear something like that just breaks your heart. Obviously I have a daughter in high school. So as you mentioned, Lowe's, these things are the things that are happening in our country now. Nowadays, it's always been happening, but it's even worse now. And like you said, we got to find a way to solve some of these things, mental health, the gun issue, whatever it is. I know we're not going to get into too much into politics, and that's not my thing either, but just a tragedy. So my prayers and thoughts go out to those people in upstate.
Yeah. And as soon as one of my lawyer friends, he's from Buffalo. He always reminds me. He's like, "I'm from Buffalo." I was like, "Okay." I don't think I know about Buffalo. No, I had a good moment in Buffalo. I went to Bob Cronow. I think it was Bob
Yeah.
Kaufman. Remember Bob Kaufman? There was Bob
Yeah.
Cronow who did the reports. He did the college reports, and then there was Bob Kaufman who played with the Buffalo Braves, right before they became the Clippers, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and
you had Bob McAdoo there.
Hey, you can't talk about Buffalo and don't talk about Bob McAdoo.
Yep. And it's funny, Lowe's, Randy Smith. I went to Buffalo State, and he was the great player at Buffalo State way before I was there. Who's from Long Island, the great Randy Smith, who was in the league. I don't know if he was in the league around your time or not.
Oh yeah, Randy was with me. He was the older guy on my team with the Clippers, and he was still as fast as I was.
And he played for the Buffalo Braves, of course. So.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Randy.
Yeah, rest in peace, Randy.
Yes.
We went up. He was working celebrity. He was doing a celebrity thing at the Mohegan Sun, and he invited my wife and I up to play golf. Man, he still had that energy and passion. He had an energy and passion for life, man. And it broke my heart to hear he had passed, man. He was always in shape, man. The guy was always in shape. Always running somewhere. But just an amazing guy. I was on a team with him, and Lionel Hollins was on the Clippers as well. Bill Walton, was on the Craig Hodges. Terry Cummings was the rookie of the year that year. Yeah.
A lot of legends. And as you mentioned, Randy Smith was incredible track runner too. He broke records at Buffalo State in basketball and track. And so, like you say, he was an incredible athlete who was, extremely fast. And that's what he was known for when he was in the league. And, again, from Long Island, but went to Buffalo State, my alma mater, and played for the Braves. And but no, you played with some legends. And, Lowe's, before we get too farther in the show, as I've said to you, one of the first things I want to do, I know I probably don't need to cover this because you guys probably cover it on a weekly basis, but I'm just a huge, being that I originally came from upstate, but like I said, I coached in New York City, Talentine High School in the Bronx, Rice High School in Harlem. Matter of fact, when I worked at Rice, I was with a Mount Vernon guy named Lou DeMello, who's I know you know Lowe's for a long time. He's a great guy. He's a very good friend of mine. And, Lou, of course, was a Mount Vernon guy, went to Mount Vernon High School. When I first was working 5-star, I met all the guys like Tony Fiorentino and Ron Rothstein and all those guys from Eastchester and just different parts. But the one thing I want to say about Mount Vernon, Lowe's, you're one of the legends that came out of there. And it's just incredible to me when I try to tell people like around the country, when you talk about players, great high schools, great tradition, great areas, towns, cities that produce pros. And Mount Vernon, got to be one of the most incredible places in the United States. It's like a 4-mile area, and most people don't know exactly. They know it's near the Bronx. It's in New York City. They
Right,
don't,
right.
unless they know New York, they don't understand, like, Yonkers, Westchester, how's it breaks from the 5 boroughs into Westchester and near Connecticut. And, you try to explain about Mount Vernon, but, like I said, Lowe's, man, when you look back, I remember being a kid and seeing Rudy Hackett play at Syracuse,
Wow.
sneaking into like Manley Fieldhouse in those days when I was a kid, working their Bayheim's basketball camp. And then, yourself, you came along, your brother Curtis, you got, Gus and Ray Williams. I mean, two incredible. Gus, one of the all-time greats. You got Scooter and Rodney McRae. I forgot to mention Earl Tatum. I mean, so many guys, Lowe's, that were, made the NBA, were not only, good players in college, but great NBA players. And I'm sure I left out some names just now. Benny Gordon recently. So, I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting guys, man, how many guys I named. There'll probably be more guys, but just have to give a big major shout out to the city of Mount Vernon. What an incredible community it is. Yourself, Lowe's, you've been helping kids there for 30 years. A famous actor, of course, was one of your good friends, Denzel Washington. The other night, I was flipping around and I see the end of that movie, The Man on Fire. And I tell you, the last 5 minutes of that movie, Lowe's, I cry every time I see it when he saves the girl over the bridge. He's wearing a Rutgers legacy coat. Nobody is cooler than Denzel. I mean, that guy, he's got to be the greatest actor in the country right now. And and I mentioned to you, Lowe's, before I went on the show tonight, that I got to meet him once, and I mentioned that I was a coach of Manhattan, and I had Luis Flores, and he knew who Luis was. He followed hoops. And he was sharp. We only met for a few minutes. It was an incredible honor to meet him. But I just want to make sure I covered that, Lowe's, about Mount Vernon, that it's just an honor to talk with you and be on the show. And mainly because of and again, I'd be remiss also. I need to mention Bobby Semino, another friend, great high school coach for years and years. All you guys there in that community have helped so many young men and players and kids come out of there. And there's such a great tradition that, it's just, I wanted to make sure I got that in there in case you guys didn't throw it in there.
Yeah. And we can't forget the women, because my wife was on the first women's state championship in New York. Yeah, they went undefeated. I don't think the boys was undefeated that year, but they were undefeated. They on the wall.
That's fantastic. Doesn't surprise me with the tradition in that town is incredible. It's got to be as good as, you could probably put it up against some big cities like Chicago and Detroit, and just Mount Vernon in itself. Not talking about Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, all the rest of New York. Just Mount Vernon, pretty incredible. I don't know if it's the water there or what, but it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Of course, I didn't know it was going to be like that, but it was just a pleasure to grow up in Mount Vernon. I actually was sharing it with some educators the other day, man, that I came to Mount Vernon. I was 5 years old, and I was expressing to them that I just turned 65, right? And I've been in Mount Vernon for 60 years of my life.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so and how much I love Mount Vernon. I mean, and I was appreciative because maybe not the people who are in the schools or the mayor now or the city council now or these teachers. But when I think back over those 60 years, those politicians, the people making decisions, the mayors, the recreation department, the school district, and teachers and counselors were a big part about PALs, YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs, a big part in me being where I am now. Right, because remember that is for real when you say it takes a village. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, it takes a village, and I was appreciative. I'm saying thank you, to you guys, but think about all your positions and the things that you're doing that will impact and is impacting the lives of young people now and their families. So yeah.
No doubt. I've come there recruiting at the high school, trying to think back to some of the guys. I didn't always get them, Mike Coburn, I think, went to Rutgers. We had different, Kevin Jones I coached against. He went to West Virginia. I was at Seton Hall, but we didn't always get all the top Mount Vernon guys, but we always recruited there, and it's always been great. And And I hope that, it stays that way. I hope the young men, keep producing and staying positive, staying focused, and following the great tradition that you guys set up there, Lowe's.
Oh, thanks. I got Daryl Jacobs down there. Said, "Tell Bobby hello, and I will see him in Vegas at the NBA Summer League."
Yes, I'll be out there. For
Yeah.
sure.
So, Coach, we're going to digress for a moment and talk about growing up, family, parents, and that whole experience, and then transition into where you are, wife and family now, and so yeah, let's jump right in there because we were talking on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking like, yeah, I'm from New York, man. Yes. So
Well,
yeah, let's.
it's funny, Lowe's. Well, I grew up, Lowe's, originally, like I said, upstate New York, and no one believes it because I moved to New York, at a pretty young age. But, I was originally from up in Binghamton, and, helped. I had a almost like a little brother to me, King Rice, who played at North Carolina as the coach of Monmouth. And I had a real tight, tight knit Italian, Spanish family up there, two brothers, two sisters. We were raised, pretty much Catholic. But one good thing that my mother was great about, she used to underline the Bible, and she was a prayer warrior. She was like, became sort of Christian. And one thing that they always taught us with religion was to have an open mind, and just be accepting of all religions and all people. And so I grew up, in a very diverse, grew up playing hoops in all African American area, down Columbus Park, downtown Binghamton. And Binghamton has tough parts and has nice parts. So I saw a little bit of everything. We saw people that had money, we saw people that didn't have money. So I kind of grew up with a little bit of everything. And but as you mentioned, Lowe's, it's a cliche and it's corny to say this, but it really is true that family is the most important thing. I mean, my mother, I was the baby, so I had two older brothers, two older sisters. So by now, my parents are gone. My mother made it to 90, 92 years old. My
Wow.
father, died young, but they instilled in us, great work ethic and togetherness, and all the right stuff, and I think we didn't have a lot of money, but I think that I was ambitious. And I think because of my family, the diversity, my one brother's a sculptor, a tenured professor up at Binghamton University. My sister was a writer. So my other brother, he was a boxer for a while. He was in Vietnam. So we had a very diverse family, and, everybody kind of went and had different talents and things like that. And, so I look back and I cherish, even though it was a different time, as you know, Lowe's, growing up in the 80s and 90s, was a completely different world, and was before social media. And, everything has changed so much. But, I certainly look back and am very, very proud and appreciative of my family and my neighborhood and people that looked out for me and helped me, get to where I am now.
Yeah, and I'm sure that if they instill, the faith and the importance of family, I'm sure it was important that in regards to education as well.
Absolutely, Lowe's. I remember in those days, kids some people were talking about not going to school, not going to college, just joining the service. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I remember talking to my older brothers, my sister, and they were like, "Look, the best thing you could do is go away from home, learn how to be on your own, go to school, get an education. It's going to, open up, so many avenues for you. It doesn't matter even what you are interested in studying. It doesn't matter whether it's business." I got my degree in broadcast journalism, because I thought, well, I'll do TV and radio and sports, try to be a sportscaster, And then when I kept playing hoops and realized once, I got done playing college after Buffalo State, I said, man, I'm not good enough to play in the NBA. I don't want to just give the game up. I got to figure out, what am I going to do? So, but, so that's how I became a coach, but the thing is, Lowe's, you make a great point. Without that degree, without that bachelor's degree, I wouldn't have been able to become a teacher and a coach at Talentine High School in the Bronx, Rice High School in Harlem. Without that 4-year degree, that gave me all these benefits of being able to do other things, as like following the coaching path, and then I did my share of broadcast TV, radio, TV stuff also throughout my career. So the degree, wasn't wasted. But so, you make a great point, Lowe's. If you can, young people today can come up, and if they can get a little sense of some religion, it doesn't matter what they believe in, as long as they have some type of foundation, and believe in God, and just something in their life where they have someone else to talk to or a place to go and meditate, things like that. And then if they could also, put that, if they got somebody that loves them, whether it's grandparents or parents or just somebody that, that loves them, that give them some type of a sense of family. And then the last part, you hit it, Lowe's, is then all of a sudden, if you can turn those two things and then get them into education where they then can broaden their horizons and, make sure they go to high school first and then try to go to college. If they could do all those things, most likely, Lowe's, they're going to probably turn out okay. That's usually those are all pretty good steps,
Yeah, definitely. They are. Yeah, great. That's a great path. And, it's interesting. My first basketball camp, like I said, I went up to Bob Kaufman had a basketball camp in Buffalo. And I was a little fooled by that. I had never been on a plane. I had never been on a plane before, right? And I wanted to go to this basketball camp. My mom scraped up some money and sent me to the basketball camp. And then I freaked out because I realized I wasn't going to drive to the basketball camp, that they was going to put me on a plane to the basketball camp. I'm like, no, I'm not getting on a plane, and I remember getting on that plane, and it wasn't a whole lot of people on the plane, but I was sitting in the middle seat. And the lady said, the steward was like, you want to look out the window? I'm like, no, I don't want to look out the window. You want something to drink? Like that. Something, to calm me down, But I was fooled by Buffalo because I flew in, and in the summertime, grass was green, weather was beautiful, had a great, great time, I was fooled because, later on when I got older, I was like, something happened to Buffalo, man. It's cold here. How did you deal with that? I mean, how did you deal with all that cold?
Oh man, that's no joke, Lowe's. I remember being in, college up there for a couple of years. First, I went to a junior college 2 years, and I went there for 2 years. And I remember being, we were in one of the blizzards. I think it was like in the 80s. And I mean, that snow and that wind would come off Lake Erie. And all the places up there, Buffalo, Rochester, all those cities that were up on the lake up there would get crushed. And I mean, there was days, I remember girls literally crying when they had to go to class. I mean, it was so cold. They would have a lot of buildings built where you didn't have to go outside because the wind was no joke. You would like run through buildings, to get to classes. And but yeah, they tricked you, Lowe's. They brought you in the summer, and then but you didn't have to go in the winter when they get killed with snow, which I'm sure you saw that in your days in the NBA, whether it was Cleveland or West Virginia or some of the cities you went to. But no, Buffalo can get hit pretty hard. Yeah,
and our youngest son was born with spinal bifida, so he played wheelchair basketball.
Okay.
Right, and so he was at Edinburgh.
Yes.
Right. He was up in Edinburgh, and we went up. We said, oh yeah, we dropped him off. When we dropped him off, it was nice, And then he was playing on the basketball team, so I think we went back up. I think even my mom went up too. My mom, his god brother, we all went and stayed up there, and we were like, look, we are not coming back here. We're not coming back here into this. The roads was icy. People was slipping off no, it was crazy. That was like Mike Tyson said, this is ludicrous.
Upstate New York can get hit. They can get hit pretty hard upstate.
And I was in Erie, so I was fooled because I was there in the 6'4" and under league. The World Basketball League. I was up there. Yeah. I did a little playing and coaching up there, and it was during the summertime.
Yep.
Right. You can get fooled. I mean, wintertime come, man. You like, hold on, I'm not going back there.
Because it is beautiful up there in the summer. Yes.
Oh yeah, it is beautiful. I mean, it has to be all that snow and that wet stuff, and you get to the summertime, everything is like green. Yeah, I was like, no. You can have that. Yeah, we can. You can definitely have Buffalo in the wintertime. I couldn't understand like this little football that what's the guy played with Denver, and then he got went over from Denver to now he won a championship. Great defensive player. He's still playing.
Oh yeah.
He went over to LA. What's he? Miller. Von
That's
Miller.
What I was thinking, Von Miller.
Yeah, Von Miller. I don't understand it. I mean, he went from Denver. It's cold in Denver and snow.
Absolutely.
Right? And then he went to LA, won the championship last year. Then he signed a contract to go to Buffalo. I don't know what he was thinking about. He he don't know, do he?
Oh
He
man,
don't
let me
know
tell
that.
you.
He don't know Buffalo is worse than Denver.
Absolutely. When
Oh
you get
man.
the chance to go to California or Miami, one of these places, I'm surprised with some of these guys.
Yeah, but I think they said money.
Right.
You know, he said, "I'm
That's
gonna
the bottom
suffer
line.
this little cold here." Yeah.
That's the
So,
bottom
coach.
line.
Yeah. So, talk to me. About the transition. You had mentioned playing ball, stuff like that, and even wanted to be on television and journalism and different things like that. How did you end up like? Where did it first start in terms of coaching?
So one of the big breaks, Lowe's, was I was working Jim Boeheim's camp up at Syracuse, and I met Bob Mackey and those guys. They came from St. Nicholas of Tolentine in the Bronx, and they knew me, and I knew them because I started working camps that summer as a college counselor, and they talked to me about coming to New York City and being a high school coach, and so I immediately jumped right on it. And luckily, when I came in, Lowe's, Tolentine was loaded. We had Malik Sealy, God rest his soul, who
Mm,
was great. Malik was great. Played St. John's, played in the
nice
NBA.
guy too.
Yeah, got killed, coming from Kevin Garnett's birthday party one night. It was very sad. I went to the funeral, but Malik was a special player, special young man. I got to coach him. We went to Italy together, won a gold medal. But we had 3 McDonald Americans. So we were number 1 in the country in 88. And I got there in the last 3 years before Tolentine closed. And I was with Adrian Autry, who's now at Syracuse as an assistant coach, but Red played at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Brian Reese, who played at North Carolina. So once I got that bug, coaching at Tolentine in the city, man, I was hooked for life, because the other thing that happened was that's when I kind of met Garf, and I started doing all the 5-star camps and driving I would go down to Riverside Church, pick up the van and take 6 or 7 kids every summer to the camp in Honesdale or Pittsburgh. And I mean, when I think back, Lowe's, some of the guys that are in those vans, man, I mean, I had like Stephon Marbury, Jamal Mashburn. I mean, there was guys like, all these guys that made the NBA. I'm like glad I never got in an accident, or there was a lot of money in those vehicles, But and then of course, as I mentioned Lou earlier, when Tolentine closed, and Lou convinced me to come over to Rice High School in Harlem. I went over to Rice. I was there with Lou for a few years. We had Felipe Lopez, Reggie Freeman. We had a great run there. And that's at that time, I mean, as you know, Lowe's, the public schools have had their runs, and the Catholic schools have had their runs. And at that time in New York, the Catholic League was just loaded. I mean, Christ the King at one time had, Colin Reeves and Derek Phelps and Jamal Faulkner. All Hallows had Chanel Scott. We had, Adrian Autry, Brian Reese, Malik Sealy. We even had Lee Green and Anthony Cade, who ended up going to Oak Hill. Then Rice had Jerry McCulloch, and then St. Raymond's had Orlando Antigua, Terrence Rencher. Malloy had Kenny Anderson, Rob Bourdain. I mean, it was a run. Lowe's.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 8 to 10 NBA guys, Jamal Mashburn, Cardinal Hayes. There must have been 8 to 10 NBA guys or great college players that ended up playing overseas in this one stretch when I was in the Catholic League in New York, and then I got a break. Pete Gillen came in. He was the head coach of Xavier, and he brought me to Xavier University. I started out Lowe's of $16,000. It was like they called it a restricted earnings job. I wasn't even on the road. I was like a young single guy, had no furniture. I owned nothing. But I loved it. And I went to Xavier with Pete, and we won 22 games. We had Brian Grant, who ended up making the NBA. And then Pete took the Providence job, Lowe's, and that was probably the biggest break of my career, because then he moved me up as the top guy, and I went on the road and started recruiting for Providence in the Big East. And I was there 4 years, and I helped recruit God Shamgod, who was a McDonald American, and he ended up, he's a player development guy now for the Dallas Mavericks, and Sham's a playground legend in New York. And I got Jamel Thomas, who was Stephon Marbury's cousin, and Derek Brown, D-Flight, they were from Coney Island. Got this kid, Ruben Garces, from Panama. And what happened was, Lowe's, that team in 97 went to the Elite Eight, and we lost to Arizona. They went on to win the national championship. We lost in overtime to Arizona. But that's how I kind of made my bones and made my reputation and got my name, because then Dick Vitale and all the TV people start saying, hey, there's this young assistant from New York who can get these New York kids. Who's this great recruiter, Bobby Gonzalez? So they started pumping my name all over the place, and that's how I got
It's like not what you know, but who you know.
Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm at University of Virginia in the ACC, and we get the #1 recruiting class in the country with Roger Mason, who played in the NBA, a bunch of guys, Majestic Map from St. Raymond's. And all of a sudden now Manhattan came calling and said, hey, we want you to come back to New York, become a head coach. the MAC conference, Manhattan job. And I remember I called Rick Pitino and I said, and I asked Pete Gillen and Rick Pitino both. They both gave me great advice. Rick said, look, Gonzo, you're ready to be a head coach. He said, chase winning. Don't worry about money, because I said, I'm gonna make less money as the head coach of Manhattan than I'm making as an assistant at Virginia in the ACC. And he said, the whole key now is chase winning, and money will follow. Don't worry about that. And then Pete said the same thing. Pete said, Bobby, I don't want to lose you, but I think you're ready to be on your own and build your own program, and you'll win there. It's a good fit for you. And Lowe's, again, I don't want to just give my whole resume, but I went to Manhattan. I was there 7 years, and we had an incredible run. We got Luis Flores, who was a special player, Dominican.
Oh,
kid.
yeah, definitely was.
You remember Luis from Washington
Yeah,
Heights?
I remember Luis. Mm-hmm.
And he was Haggerty Award winner twice. He took us to 2 NCAAs. We played crazy thing, Lowe's. The first year we get to the NCAA, we play Syracuse in the first round, and they got Carmelo Anthony, the best player in the whole tournament. And we lose in a war in Boston, and they go on to win the national championship. So that's how we got knocked out. The following year, we come back, we beat Florida by 15 points. Billy Donovan, they had, David Lee, all these, Joakim Noah, they had all these players. And the next round, we play Wake Forest with Chris Paul, who was the best player in that tournament. So literally 2 years in a row, it took like 2 NBA All-Stars, Hall of Fame guys, to knock us out. We were really, really good, and we lost to Wake only by a couple points. We almost beat them to get to the Sweet 16. But after that, Lowe's, we came back, and Mayor Giuliani was a Manhattan grad. So they had like a parade. We rang the opening morning bell at the Stock Exchange. We were like the toast of Broadway. We were the king of New York. And so from that point on, Lowe's, I think, the last 20 years, where anytime I go into the city, people to this day come up to me and say, they don't talk about Seton Hall. They don't talk about coaching overseas. They don't even talk about the fact that I'm in the NBA now scouting for the Pistons. What they talk about is the job at Manhattan, and then when we went to the NCAA, and that they bet money on the game or something like that. that we made them a lot of money, or they were in a bar that day and everyone was screaming and going nuts because we were a mid-major and we knocked off the big, David and Goliath March Madness thing,
Yeah,
It was kind of before Brad Stevens and Shaka Smart and those guys, before social media. So when we did it, Manhattan, it was a big deal. We were sort of the Cinderella that year in 2005. And but basically, Lowe's, that set me up on a course that helped me get the job in the Big East at Seton Hall. And then, from there, coaching overseas, and then from there, working now with the Detroit Pistons in the NBA. So again, I don't want to spend too much on just my career, my resume, but
it's interesting since this is I wanted to ask you a curiosity question in the midst of this. With earlier we did a shout out on Mental Health Month, and from your perspective as a player and as a coach, do you think the situations around the stressfulness around playing when you were coaching or playing, did you feel that kind of stress and that kind of pressure?
Absolutely, Lowe's. And I tell you something, Lowe's, that I've learned, through the years, 18 years in Division I. It's certainly a lot harder on coaches, I think, than the fans and the people realize. Now, of course, coaches get paid very well, so everyone understands that they get paid a lot of money to deal with that kind of pressure. So I get that part of it, and I'm not just trying to be sympathetic, to coaches. Let's say a guy like Roy Williams, who retired, Jay Wright, who just got out. He felt like it. And he's only 60 years old, but I think after 21 years, he felt a little burnt out. I think because the keeping up with the Joneses, there's such pressure to win. The social media today, I think that it definitely affects coaches, and it's a lot harder, I think, than people on the outside really realize. But even let's talk about the players more so. The thing that I learned, Lowe's, is you kind of start out as a young coach and you think you can sort of be great at everything. You say, well, I want to be great defensive coach, great offensive coach, great rebounding. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then you realize, Lowe's, after 8, 10, 15, the longer you stay in it, more experience you get, you realize that the X's and O's are important. And it's certainly important to know your craft. and be good with strategy. And you're not going to fool anybody because guys at the highest level are all good. And even if people think they're not good coaches, most of the guys at the highest level, these guys have one of these 30 jobs in the NBA. Or when I was coaching in the Big East, one of only 16 head coaches in the Big East with guys like, Rick Pitino and Jim Boeheim and Jim Calhoun and Bob Huggins. These guys are all Hall of Fame coaches. You're not going to, trick those guys or fool those guys or out coach them too often. So, but what I learned in those days, though, Lowe's, is that 90% of it is really the mental, the X's and O's and the strategy is really a small part of it. It's the guys that can, one player needs a hug, another player needs a kick in the butt. One guy you got to talk to, another guy maybe you can get away with raising your voice. The other guy maybe needs some discipline, but you got to handle it the right way. In other words, from the neck up and coaching the personalities and learning what's going on in their lives and what their background is, the mental Lows, I think is, and now, especially nowadays, and that was like that 10, 15 years ago, I felt like it was becoming more about motivating the player, learning the player, knowing the player, pressing buttons with the players, and more about the mental. And I was thinking that 10, 15 years ago. I think nowadays the mental is even more important because of all the pressures going on in society, kind of how divided we are as a nation. You had the thing that just happened in the last few years with COVID, with the pandemic. So I think you make a great point, Lowe's, that, we don't want to just get caught up in talking about X's and O's or winning and losing and players and stuff like that. And we'd be remiss to not talk about how important the mental part of it is, because sometimes coaches, you're not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and, you need to have your players talk to people, or you might need help, or you might need people around your team or around your players that they feel that they can talk to, or someone that they can trust and open up with. So I think that, in the last few years in the NBA, Lowe's, you're seeing it. Guys like Kevin Love and different NBA players have stepped out and they started talking about, how important the mental stuff that's going on in all their lives, especially some of these guys that, and you know how it is, Lowe's, all of a sudden they go to the NBA overnight and they go from maybe they were broke or they don't have a lot of money or they come from a tough situation or tough neighborhood, tough environment, tough upbringing. Next thing you know, overnight they're multimillionaire. They got all these things coming at them. And so the mental part of it, handling these pressures and dealing with the stuff that's going on in society, I think is a huge, huge thing, Lowe's. And so, you make a very, very, very good point. I think it might be more important almost than the basketball part of it.
Well, yeah, definitely today. You mentioned a number of things that I think about all the time, particularly when it comes to the African American player, right? Because many of the guys that I had at the Boys and Girls Club, there was really, not a father, available, and so, you know, now you're out here alone. Mom is doing a great job, but now you're a grown man, and you're going on to college, right? And it's a struggle. Because I think about, like, the Williams brothers,
Right.
and of course Scoot and Rodney had both mom and dad. But a lot of times they didn't really know. We were all just getting into this thing, so we don't.
Right.
Our parents knew nothing about college and pros and all of those things back in the day. Now, where people may be more aware
They're more
today,
savvy today. Yeah.
yeah, about
Yeah.
that, but we didn't know anything about that back in the day, and we were just experiencing as we were going along, and I have to credit, like, particularly, God rest his soul, Coach Jim Amick, who recruited me at West Virginia. He was only there 2 years, but the way he treated me as a player. You know how you a head coach. You know how head coaches
Absolutely.
are, right? Yeah. Head
Lowe's,
coaches like, look.
absolutely. Absolutely. The head coach usually, well, at least in the old day, like back in the day, it was, the head coach was kind of like, the bad cop. And he came in and, laid down the law and controlled all the minutes and the playing time and did all the discipline and all that. And then
Yeah.
the assistant coach was the good
He
cop.
pat you like, hey man, how
Yeah.
you doing? You good?
He had to hug the guys. And, yep.
Yeah. I mean, like, we were talking about, I did the wake for my for Coach Amick recently, earlier in the year.
Okay.
and they asked me to do the invocation, and they had no asked me to do eulogy. So asked me to
Okay.
run the service, everything. I was like, what? Okay, I could do that. So,
And that
but
was
the
with
thing
Gail
is,
Catlett, right? Gail Catlett was coaching
it
you?
was actually Jody Gardner was the
Oh, that
head
was
coach.
before. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And my junior year, I got Gail Catlett, but it
Okay.
was Jody Gardner and Coach Jim Amick.
Okay.
And the thing was, when I seen Coach Gardner at the funeral,
Okay.
and this is how we look at head coaches. Like we go like, "Hey, coach, how you doing?" But we like, "Man, I don't really like that guy, man." So we kind of look at him a little different way. But the assistant coach, Coach Jermaine, the one that hugged you and
Of course.
told you all the things you want to hear. He was like, okay, it was a different experience. But I get the good cop, bad cop. I get that.
But I think today, Lowe's, it's a big part of it now. You probably heard of this, Lowe's, that the transfer portal in college basketball in Division One. So I believe there's 362 D1s or whatever the number is, and you have over 1,400 kids in the transfer portal. Now, some of that is because yes, the NCAA stepped in and gave everyone an extra year because of COVID, and some of it is because now guys can graduate and be a grad transfer with a year left if they redshirted as a freshman or something, they can go to another school and play immediately without sitting out. So there's some different reasons why, yes, the portal's so big, but a lot of it, Lowe's, is, kids today, they're in a hurry. They want to be, All-American the first week, NBA by the second week. Like they're not, there's no such thing, Lowe's, anymore. Like when you came along or when I was first coaching, you might have had a junior point guard that started for 2 years, and you might have had a freshman that came off the bench behind him for a year or two. And that was sort of normal then. And then you turned over the keys to the kid when he became a junior, Nowadays, guys get on campus. If they're not playing as a freshman, they're out of there. So it's just
Yeah.
it's a different, mindset today, different mentality. So the mental part of it, it's so important for all the staffs and the head coaches to be sort of not saying, you got to kiss their butt and you can't discipline them and you can't coach them. But coaches today that are the best coaches are the guys that have to figure out a balance where I don't know if you can coach the way they once did 10, 20, 30 years ago. Bobby Knight, who was a genius coach, of course, brilliant, brilliant coach, genius coach, Hall of Fame coach. But, the way some of those guys did it in those days, that was understandable then. It was acceptable. Nowadays, like young men, kids will leave, they'll quit, they'll transfer, parents will jump in, they'll call up, people will complain. I mean, you'll get fired, you'll get sued. I mean, you'll get arrested. I mean, it's like a whole different world now in terms of, and I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm not saying that, guys should be able to, jump up, down, scream and curse and go crazy. I mean, you're dealing with people's kids, and, guys, coaches need to be professional and there's a line there, you can't cross, and you certainly can't put your hands at a kid or there's certain things you can't say. You should have never been able to do that even 20 years ago. But what I'm saying, Lowe's, is it's just a different challenge today, coaching, because of the young people, the way the world is, the way everything is different. And so the mental part of it, I think, for all coaches, even especially at the college level, and of course at the NBA level. Now you deal with the NBA level, Lowe's, you know how it is. Now you got guys. I mean, it's a players' league. They say the NBA is a players' league, and it's about the superstars, and the coaches kind of manage the players at that level. Whereas, in the coaching at the college level, maybe the coaches still have a little bit of, especially a guy like, at least Coach K is retiring now, but he was, kind of a big name. There's still a couple of those legends around, but they're becoming dinosaurs now. There's not many.
Well, yeah, and then those
Coach K's
players
left.
had respect for those. They went there for the purposes of being with them, and so they had a lot of respect for their judgment,
That's right.
and also trust. I mean, you mentioned the word trust. And one of the things is that you go to a school because you believe you can trust the system. You trust the people who are going to be handling you.
That's right.
And I have to say, honestly, my freshman year, and I played well. I didn't go in with the expectation that I was going to start. I mean, I never went in with an expectation I'm going to start. They didn't promise me I was going to start. I mean, people said it in the newspaper. Well, those, because he's the best player since whatever, and he's going to be a starter this year. I mean, but me, I was going in to work hard. I'm gonna be a part of a team. I wanted to just play. right?
Right.
And and I did play. I did play, and then when the playoffs came, right, a team we had beat twice, and I played a major part in the playoffs. I mean, there was some beef between the senior players and getting their
Right.
shine, and they didn't want me to. They were like, "Well, you playing him? You didn't play us like that when we were freshmen." And
Maybe a
they
little bit of
didn't.
jealousy and resentment there.
Yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they didn't play me in the game. They didn't play me in the game,
Wow.
and we ended up losing the first game of the playoffs. A team that we destroyed and I played well against them. And I felt I felt some kind of way when it was over, but I didn't know what to think.
Right. Right.
Because
Right.
like today people know what to think. They're like, okay, I'm going in the portal, I'm
Right.
transferring, so we didn't know anything back in the day about I was going to transfer. This is the
Right.
choice. I'm here at
Right.
West Virginia. That's going to be it, but
You had to make
yeah,
it work. Yeah.
yeah,
If
you did have to make it work.
Hey,
And then you
Los,
had my
Los,
coach
maybe
used to say, coach in the Boys and Girls Club, he used to say, look, I call him up because he's my mentor. He said, hey, look, man, don't let nobody give you nothing. Work for it,
Right.
right? Get in the gym. They call it the day to get in the labs, get the work in, like that. And I did. So,
Well, in
but
those days, Lowe's, if you called home, probably if you called home to your dad or your coach, they would say, suck it up, stick it out. You know what I mean? Don't complain. Nowadays it's different. It's different. It's a little bit of, I'm not going to say entitlement. I think there is some people that
I
try
must.
to.
Well, you won't say it, but I will.
I want to try to be, politically correct here and diplomatic, but yeah, it's a different. It's like nowadays, if a young man calls home, that they might say, "Oh, well, the coach is being the parents might call up the coach and say, you're being too hard on my kid, and I'm gonna take him out of there." And then you have another thing now, Lowe's too, is a very big challenge with all these college coaches, and this is the NIL. For people out there that maybe don't know what that is, they could look it up. It's called name, image, and likeness. It's a new thing that the NCAA has passed in the last year with college basketball. And it came from, which, understandably why it came, there was, the NCAA was making billions of dollars and the players weren't making anything and people were complaining. There was lawsuits and finally enough cases broke through that they had to say, hey, look, players, even though they're on scholarship, they're getting free room and board, books and tuition and all that. Some of these guys, their whole life is making money for the school and they're putting schools on the map. And during March Madness, they're going on these Cinderella runs and they're making millions and millions for the college. They need to be able to get something back. They got to make some money off their name or their image or their likeness. So the NCAA passed this thing now, and there's a way to do that, Lowe's, with all the schools, but it's brand new. So it's a little bit like the Wild Wild West right now. It's a little crazy. It's almost like a legal way to pay kids. And there's people, getting, there was a rumor that one kid was going to go pro at Kentucky, but he went back because he might get $1 million in his NIL money. So he'll make more money to stay than if he went out. So there's all this talk about between the transfer portal, the NIL, and this is what's crazy right now with college basketball. And I think that's one of the reasons why some of these guys are retiring and getting out because, it's no joke. It's a tough business. This might be for young people. Some of the young guys can handle it. Some of the older guys are saying, hey, man, I don't need any part of this. This is getting too crazy. So, that's another thing I just want to mention for the viewers out there that, that maybe they follow college basketball, but they don't know what's going on with the NIL and the portal. And but getting back to what you were saying, I just want to keep emphasizing that, Lowe's. I just think the mental part of it, you were tough, Lowe's. I watched you. I remember you as a player. First of all, I have to admit this. I have a bias or a prejudice. I love lefties. So I've always recruited left-handed guards and I love left-handed players. I had a ton of left-handed guards at Xavier, Providence, Virginia, Manhattan, Seton Hall, everywhere I went, high school. So, and you were a lefty, and I remember your game. So but you were old school, Lowe's. You came up at a time when, like you were going to earn, you were going to make your bones and earn your stripes and not worry about the hype of being on a top AAU team or having to have a sneaker deal or any of the Instagram or the hype. Nowadays, these kids have what's called a brand. And they literally have a brand by the time they're 16, 17 years old in high school. And it's amazing. It's just a whole different world, And yourself, Lowe's, you had to get it the old fashioned way. You know,
Yeah. I
people
want to see
probably
if I can get some money, man, that I missed. You know, is there
call
any
up,
money out there?
call up West Virginia and say, hey, did I help make any money for the school that they never gave us? But it's a different world now, Lowe's. It's amazing.
Yeah,
These kids nowadays, they have what's called a brand, and they're on Facebook and Instagram and all these things, and they're well known. There's not a lot of secrets anymore in the whole country in terms of players. The exposure, like a guy like you, Lowe's, you had to get seen. Somebody had to be smart enough to come to Mount Vernon, see you play, and say, wow, this kid is good. I'm going to offer him a scholarship. But if certain schools didn't come see you, you didn't get the exposure like these guys today with all the AAU events,
right.
all across the country. Las Vegas, they go everywhere. They play an AAU, million AAU games all everywhere. Then there's, again, the social media. There's camps. There's scouting reports. There's all these guys that write up players, and there's almost no secrets anymore. I mean, there's still every once in a while a sleeper comes along, but it's not like it was back in the day, because now the exposure level is incredible. It's gone through the roof.
Wow. Yeah, and for those parents who may have a student athlete or some athlete that may watch this show, talk a little bit about today becoming, number one, a successful student athlete. I'm going to say that first, from the transition from high school, into college, and as a pro scout, the things that you look for, in order for that kid to make that transition. Because I'll tell you
Absolutely.
why. I'm telling you why I asked the question. Because last week I was swimming at the high school, and so I saw Isaiah Cousins. That's how I walked into Isaiah because he was in the gym. Hey, there, Legends in the gym. I was like, oh, I'm looking around, like, okay. So we would talk, having a conversation. So I asked him. I was just curious.
Right.
Knowing that he had a successful high school career, a successful college career, and he's still kind of trying to make his way in terms of professional. And he played in the G League. He overseas, and he's still young, so he's still doing it. I said, over the last 4, 5, 6 years that you've been coming back to Mount Vernon, coming to the gym, working out, right? How many of the young men who you see in the gym every single time ask you, how did you do it? Right? How did you become successful in high school? How did you become successful in college? What did you do? Right? And he had to think about it.
They want to know about the process.
Right. But I asked him how many guys asked him about that process.
Right. Or you were asking that. I see.
Yeah, I was asking Isaiah if somebody had walked up to him, and he was like, no, nobody. So you walk in the gym, right? You walk in the gym and you've done this, and you shooting around, and they down there working out to try to do what you've done.
Right.
Right. But they don't ask you how you got it done. I mean, it just so
you make a good point. You make a great point. Well, let me just say this first for the kids and the players and the stuff that are out there. And again, this is corny, but let me mention something first about the academics. What's amazing is that a lot of times young kids in 9th and 10th grade, they don't take school serious at first. And then by the time they become a junior or senior, and they might have, all of a sudden they get bigger, they get stronger, they develop, and all of a sudden they see that they may have some scholarships or chance to play college basketball. But then they look at their academics, and now they got to do all this last minute, craziness to try to get eligible, because they didn't take, academics serious their first couple of years until they all of a sudden saw themselves as a chance to get a college scholarship. So what I want to first say to the young people out there is, man, get as good at grades as you can, work as hard as you can in school, because the better you do, the easier your life is going to be, the better it is for you to have a chance to either go to college, to get academic money, to get a scholarship, or just to even, move on in life smoother. So it will help you. So let me throw that out about the academics. But getting into the process, you make a great point, Lowe's, and I'm pretty amazed myself that I've been talking to high school coaches and a lot of basketball people in the last year and a half since I took this job with the Pistons as a scout. And it's different than coaching, of course. You don't have that finite thing of keeping score and, somebody wins, somebody loses. So it's been a challenge for me to, kind of go from coaching to, okay, just evaluating players. But you realize that, you did it for yourself anyway, as an assistant recruiting guys, as a head coach recruiting guys. So you did it in college. You evaluated players for scholarships. And now you're doing it at a higher level. And there's more at stake, of course. There's millions of dollars at stake. And you got to, really, there's more guys doing it. Each organization, there's, 30 teams, Lowe's, probably each organization does it a little differently. Maybe one team has 8 scouts because they feel like that's enough. Another team might have 20 scouts. Another team might have 3 or 4 international guys because they really want to do a great job overseas. And then maybe some teams only have 1 guy overseas because they really want to focus on US. So like what I'm learning is that each team sort of does it a little differently, but you can believe that all 30 teams, are very, very thorough. Now that doesn't mean that they can't make a mistake. Believe it or not, guys can still study things for 9 months and still, there's guys like Fred VanVleet who did not get drafted, who ends up becoming this terrific player. A guy like little guard out of Christ the King High School, Jose Alvarado, played at Georgia Tech, doesn't get drafted. He's playing on New Orleans team in the playoffs. So there's a chance for guys to make it. It's not impossible, but at the same time, guys have to be realistic and understand it's not easy. So what I would say is that there's some different things, of course, personal, development, player development, training, weight training. Nowadays, that's another thing, Lowe's, that 10, 20 years ago, it was around, but it wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. Now it's amazing. All these guys got personal trainers working on one-on-one moves. They're lifting weights. They're eating a certain way. They're doing all these things. So the players are much more savvy, and the families are much more savvy about how to make money, how to get exposure, and all of that. But to just kind of focus a little bit on the process, what I'd like to mention is, right now you still have the one and done rule where guys have to go to college. They have to be 19 years old to enter the draft. At some point, they may get rid of that rule. But there is things going on now, Lowe's, that you have this thing called Overtime Elite, which is like a prep school in Atlanta where they have 4 or 5 teams and they're able to pay guys, in high school. It's basically like going to prep school and getting paid. And they have that now, the Overtime Elite. There's a thing called the G League Ignite, where G League Ignite will take 4 or 5 McDowell All-Americans every year, put them on that G League team, and now they're playing against the G League. The G League, of course, is a league that you talked about, Isaiah Cousins is in. All 30 teams in the NBA now have a G League team. And, so now every team that has an NBA team owns their own G League team. And that's kind of like a farm system, like in baseball with the Yankees, or, having AAA or AA, same thing in the NBA with the G League. There's such a thing now, Lowe's, called a two-way contract, which means they can sign a guy to a two-way where he can be on the main team. A roster can have everybody's NBA roster. So there's 450 guys in the league. There's 30 teams, and each team can have 15 guys on a roster. You can have what they call two-ways. So each team's allowed 2 of those guys, where the guy can go from the G League back up to the main team sometimes and back down to the G League. And each team can sign 2 of those guys. So there's what's called two-ways. There's 15 roster spots. Your G League team has, I believe, 13 or 15 spots. On the G League team, the two-ways are able to get paid more money. And then there's this thing called Exhibit 10, and you can have 6 of those. The reason the NBA put in these Exhibit 10s and these two-way deals, Lowe's, was because all the best players that weren't getting drafted, that weren't on an NBA roster, they would say, "Oh, hell with it then. If I'm not on an NBA team, I'll just go overseas. I can make more money playing international." Well, the G League is trying to make the G League more attractive and more viable for guys to stay in the U.S. and play in the G League and then get moved up to the NBA. So they wanted to figure out a way to pay these guys more money in the G League. And the way that they can pay them more money in the G League is a two-way contract or a Exhibit 10. But basically, Lowe's, the process is this. Guys finish their season in college, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Nowadays, what they're starting to do is they start immediately training, getting workouts, and trying to get the right agency that can get them in with NBA teams that are doing workouts, what they call pre-draft workouts. As that's going on, Lowe's, there'll be 3 things that are the main combines nowadays in the U.S. And you played in one of them, which is Portsmouth Invitational. Portsmouth Invitational down in Virginia. It's been around for 30 years. They still do it. It isn't as high profile as it once was, Lowe's. What they do now is they kind of take about, I believe when I went to it a few weeks ago, there was maybe 60 players or maybe 80 players there. But those 80 guys were all pretty much kind of like borderline guys that weren't a lock to be a lottery pick. They weren't a lock to be a first round pick, maybe not even second round pick. They were all these guys that were like on the fence, maybe G League, maybe a 2A, maybe Exhibit 10. So that's what Portsmouth is now. Now, when Portsmouth ends, and that's why that's the first one, that kicks off usually in April. And once that finishes, they'll take the top 5 or 10 guys from that, and they will invite them to what's called the G League Combine, which is in Chicago. Now, that's a new thing that was only started 3 years ago. They have a G League Combine, and they bring 44 players to that. They'll take 4 or 5 guys from Portsmouth that were the top players there. They bring them to the G League Combine. The G League Combine actually started today, and it's going to be the 16th and the 7th. No, I'm sorry, it starts tomorrow. It's the 16th and the 17th in Chicago. There'll be 44 guys there, and they put them on 4 different teams, 11 guys on 4 different teams. They'll compete for 2 days. All 30 NBA teams, all the executives, all the scouts, everyone will be there to watch, and everyone's focusing on them to see, are these guys we want for our G League team? And then the best players in that, about 4 or 5 guys, will get moved to the regular main NBA Combine, which goes on the 18th to the 22nd in Chicago, same place. At the end, from the middle to the end of this week, it's back-to-back. G League Combine 2 days, NBA Combine like 4 or 5 days. Now, with the process there, Lowe's, what they do once they get into the Chicago NBA Combine, they do all the measurements. They test guys. They do all these physical kinds of tests. That's where the interviews take place. All the owners, the presidents, the GMs, the head coaches, they go out to Chicago. So Chicago is like the Final Four for college basketball. It's almost like a coaching convention, but all the scouts are there too. And what they do is the lottery pick guys that don't have to prove themselves, a guy like Paolo Banchero from Duke or whoever is considered like somebody that was like a lottery pick, what they'll do is they'll go to Chicago and be with agents, but they won't necessarily work out or play because they already kind of, have their position, so to speak. So the agent will say, hey, you don't have anything to prove. You don't need to play because you could end up getting hurt. So those guys will be there just for the interviews, and they'll interview with teams because teams want to, meet the guy in person and put him through a series of questions. And they spend a lot of money, as you know, Lowe's, on all types of background, checking your background and bringing psychologists in. And when you meet with the teams, especially if it's top 10 pick or a lottery pick, they're going to invest a lot of money in this young man. So they do a very thorough job of having him meet with all type of people, and they put him through a series of questions. And they really do an incredible job, the NBA, with getting the background of the young man. They'll call up. I mean, Lowe's, I've heard stories about them calling not only the parents or the high school coach, they'll call the trainer, the guidance counselor, somebody that may be the crossing guard, or somebody at a church, or somebody that knew the kid in high school. They will call teachers. It's amazing the job they do. The other thing that we look for, I know you mentioned, so I'm trying to kind of fit a lot in, Lowe's. I hope that's okay. I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, because this is what. We were talking. We're in the NBA playoffs, right? A lot of these young men and or young women, right, want to know process, right?
No
Everybody
question.
want to know. Everybody want to know how can I get a scholarship? How can I be good in high school? How can I get the scholarship to go to college? How do I make it to the league? Look at the process.
Well, that's exactly right. In high school, it's, you got to try to play on your high school team. You got to try to play AAU. You got to try to go to camps. You got to try to get exposure. You got to try to get coaches to come in and see you. You got to try to get out in the live period and to try to get seen to get a scholarship. Well, the NBA, similar, but now what happens is, okay, now it's a process. You got to go through this process. And then when Chicago ends, they'll take, all the guys that played real well. There's some guys that can help themselves maybe in the combines. There's some guys that maybe didn't help themselves or hurt themselves or whatever. And then there's a lot of jockeying that goes on, Lowe's. As soon as that ends, there's still more workouts that'll come up. What'll happen is teams, all 30 teams, will keep bringing guys in all the way up till the draft in June. The draft is June 22nd. So teams will start bringing in individual workouts with players. They'll call their agents or whoever they got to go to get that player to come to their building to work out in front of their staff. That's going on. But then you also have these big agencies, Lowe's, let's say like a Rock Nation in New York or CAA or some of these big agencies, Wasserman, they have what's called pro days. And they'll have 4 or 5 guys that they represent, or 10 or 15 guys, whoever they represent, and they'll have a pro day. And so NBA, as NBA scouts and GMs and all of us, everyone's running around going to pro days. You'll go to all the combines, then you'll go to all the pro days, and then you'll at the same time be watching guys work out at your facility. And between all that stuff, that's when these decisions are being, not only did the guy, you watched him as a freshman in college or sophomore or junior or senior or all 4 years or however many years or high school or wherever he's coming from, overseas. And this is for everybody, Lowe's. When they do Chicago, they do the international players. They bring some of the G League guys. They bring some guys that are old enough that are coming, 1 year out of high school. So what happens is this is a little bit of everything. And here's what's really tough, Lowe's. So let's just say you had 80 guys in Portsmouth and you had 44 in G League Combine and you had 76 at the NBA Combine. Let's say that's 200 guys. There's only 60 spots in the draft. And I'm not saying all 200 of those guys, the 60 will come from that 200. There could be some guy overseas that didn't make it to any of these things. There could be someone somewhere Lowe's that was hurt or was in summer school or, had some reason that didn't get exposure. Something happened. He, was hidden or something. There was stories about Giannis Antetokounmpo, that he he was like hidden and then they finally brought him to this international thing. So let's say, but the point I'm trying to make, Lowe's, is, you only have 60 spots to get drafted, out of like these 200 guys or even 300 guys. And it's extremely difficult to get drafted. And then once you get drafted, the first round is guaranteed money. The second round is not guaranteed money, but you're part of the, they own your rights and then you could come and get the workout. So now what happens, Lowe's, is after the draft is over, you have the summer league in Las Vegas. So now you have 30 teams putting a team out, an NBA Summer League team. And that's another chance for all 30 teams to go out and watch guys, not only guys on their own Summer League team, but to watch all 29 other Summer League teams and see who they see out there. So you got the Summer League. Once that's done, now you're getting close to training camp. And now when training camp comes in September and October, they will invite the 15 guys they think are going to be on their roster plus an additional 5 guys. So now they got 20 guys or whatever the number you're allowed. I think it's 20 that you're allowed for training camp. And now they're bringing all those guys to training camp. So so the last part I want to mention though, Lowe's, let me just say this because of a guy like Isaiah is some guys have to go through the back door, meaning you remember Mario Ellie, who was a guy
Yes.
Yeah. He was a guy, I believe he played the G League or overseas. I don't think he got drafted. He came
CBA.
CBA. He made the NBA from playing overseas or just doing work wherever he was. And then people saw him and said, hey, we got to give this guy a chance in the league. So again, there's guys like that every year. There's guys getting picked up from overseas, from G League, from some other Australia, China. The NBA has got, radar everywhere. They got scouts everywhere. They got, again, everything now is social media. There's exposure, people watching films, people, talking, guys doing word of mouth. So what happens is every year, there's examples of guys coming from different places and making the league that didn't get in under the traditional way. They didn't get in when they were 22 or 23 or 24. Sometimes they get in at 26 or 28 or, and so that can happen, Lowe's. So guess what I'm trying to say out there for the young people and the people that are listening is that, look, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy. It's the best of the best. It's the top players in the world. There's only, 450 guys in the league. There's probably 300 of those 450 guys that think about a guy like Lowe's Moore when he was 28 years old. He's got a wife and kids. He's not giving up his spot too easily. So when you got these young guys trying to make the team, you also got some older guys that are trying to hang on to their spot on the team. So, it's not easy to make the NBA. It's almost like winning a lottery ticket. I mean, it's no joke. And especially nowadays because of the size and the athleticism and the talent level. And, it's really incredible. So it's not easy, but it's not impossible. So I don't want guys not to dream. And, but there is a process. And hopefully I covered that, Lowe's.
Yeah.
And as quick as I could with a lot of information.
A lot of information. And also we would, we want to take a look at it. Some things that my wife is popping up on the screen.
Certainly, yes. Let me answer some questions or help out with anything.
Bobby, there's been quite a few comments from coaches. He says, what can you say to them, keep them encouraged during this process? And it clearly seems much harder than it was back in the day.
Well, I agree with that. In some ways, it's harder because now there's more players, playing. There's more people in love with the game. There's more people realize the money that's involved. So in some ways, it is harder. What I would say to stay encouraged is, you can't give up. You can't quit. You got to keep fighting, because the bottom line is, that old saying, it's corny, but you shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you end up in the land of the stars. I mean, even if guys don't make the NBA, they can have a pretty good life. I had Luis Flores, who played overseas for 15 years, played at, Manhattan. He was in the NBA Cup of Coffee, Denver Nuggets 10-day, Golden State. He was there for a while. I went out and visited him one time when he was with one of the NBA teams, but he ended up playing in Israel, Spain. I mean, he had a pretty good career. He got to travel the world. He learned some different languages. I think he met his wife overseas, and he, he made some good money. So I would say, even if you can't make the NBA, even if you can't go overseas, there's the one thing I will say that is encouraging today is, one, there's more exposure. So you can get seen and you can get lucky, easier and faster and sooner than back in the day. Another thing I would say is that there's a lot more ways to make it. There's more vehicles. There's more pro teams. There's more pro leagues. There's more, the exhibit 10s, the two ways. So I think that the way I would tell coaches to keep you encouraged is, you can't give up. You got to keep fighting. There's stories all the time. Like, again, a young man that, some guys that didn't get drafted, that all of a sudden you look and they're in the league and you say, wow, that guy, man, he just kept working. He didn't get discouraged. He did not quit. He didn't give up. He just kept, coming at it. I know some guys that play in the summer league every summer in Vegas, even if they don't, every summer they play and they don't make the league, and they go back every summer trying to get on a summer league team, and they keep trying, and they keep coming to camp, or they keep getting a workout, or they keep. So I think that's the best thing I would say to encourage you, is that I think there's a lot of positive things that can happen, and a lot of guys can still make good money and have good careers. Even if they don't make the NBA, but you never know. I mean, there's guys out there that have made the league that no one would have thought, we're going to make the league. And even me, no matter how good anyone is in this business with like evaluating and recruiting or scouting, no one's 100%. It's not an exact science. And look at the kids that are from Westchester that made it during that one little group, like Eric Pascal from Utah Jazz, who's from Dobbs Ferry. You got Donovan Mitchell, who's become a star, of course, with Utah Jazz. You have Mark Jerome's son, Ty Jerome, who's with Oklahoma City Thunder. All those kids came from Westchester. I'm sure a lot of people didn't think they would make the NBA. All three of those guys are in the league right now. I mean, Benny Gordon is an example of hard work paying off. I mean, granted, okay, we knew he was a great player at UConn, and people figured he would probably make the pros, but I don't think anyone knew he would be like an NBA All-Star, become as good as he became. So I think that, you know what I mean, Lowe's. So I think there's a lot of levels of that kind of stuff. And, I think, guys got to hang in there, and because we all love the game, at the end of the day, Lowe's, what brings us all together is basketball. It's an incredible sport, and it's a great game, and it's it reaches what's the word? It doesn't matter about culture, race, religion, politics. It transcends. That's the word I was looking for. It transcends. Thank you, Patrice. It transcends. It transcends everything to me.
But, the other thing is that you got you got to have a love for the game.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
Those guys that keep coming back every year. For that shot, they love the game. I mean, some people do it for the money, and if I could just get that money, but there are people who really, really love the game, and so they're willing to make those sacrifices.
I agree.
For as long as they can. I don't know if we can just start popping up some things or comments that people were saying. We may go a little bit over, but I think this is important. You see that?
Yeah, see, it says, I helped my players. My son received a full scholarship. The process was long and hard, but he received it. However, his school counselor did nothing to help. That's disappointing to hear. Again, sometimes people are in positions of power, and they should be using those positions of power to help This is why they're there. They're supposed to help them with whether it's academics or, understand how to take the SAT or ACT, or what do you need to do for the clearinghouse in order to be eligible, and what paperwork do you have to send in, and they need to educate the families. I always feel bad when I hear that sometimes families and parents, the schools don't seem to have a good communication with the family members on how they should go about the process of getting their kid eligible, not just for sports, but how about just applying to college by the time you're a junior, or, I hope that's getting better, Lowe's. I'm certainly not an expert. I've been out of college coaching for
I think
10
that,
years now.
yeah, I think there should be. I don't know if they're getting better, but I think that the minute that a young man or woman, makes the high school team in any sport, right? Counselors should be aware what if the potential of that student athlete has the ability to go on to college. They need to know the process.
That's right.
Like you just mentioned, the clearinghouse.
That's right.
Things that you need academically in order to meet the requirements for a college, right? And I always ask the kid, and I want to go to Duke. Okay, what do you need to get in Duke?
Right.
So
Right.
you need to know that whether you playing sports or not, you need to know what will help you get qualified in
That's
order
right.
to be a academic student or a student athlete.
That's right.
So
100%.
I said, we need positive influence coaches and to help players keep their faith. It says,
Well, that's one thing, Lowe's, I would try to emphasize for people out there, man. Listen, I've never been an expert with youth basketball. I never, really coached youth. I started at the high school level. I went to college, and then from college, I went to the pros. So I wouldn't claim that I'm an expert with youth. But I will say this: anytime I ever saw young people at a camp or a clinic or this or that, I would emphasize to you, whoever the coaches are and the people working with them, please try to make it a positive experience, because the first experience for young people sometimes is a lasting experience. And sometimes they could fall in love with the game, or they could get turned off from the game. Just like that, if the people that are working with these young kids first, before they even get a chance to get to the secondary level, the next level, high school, college, pro. So I would just really say that, at that level, it's about development. It's about having a great time. It's about having fun. It's about having a good experience, having basketball, teaching them about the game. It's about learning the game and having fun with the game, not necessarily winning and losing. I think that you realize that when you get to the level where I was at, where the winning and losing can then sometimes get in the way of relationships and how much time you can spend with kids and how you can handle and how you can be around kids. It gets harder and harder to have those kind of relationships. So when you're working with the youth, please try to make it a positive experience, because you don't know how many young people you might be able to save by having that basketball experience be a good experience for the young people.
yeah, and I think it's important too. Since I was a little kid, as a young man in elementary school, I used to hear a number of the high school players who used to come and speak at our classes about what they were actually doing in terms of going through their process. And then, of course, when I got to high school and started playing, I started, visiting the elementary schools, middle schools, and, talking about my process and my struggles academically, and the things I needed to improve on in order to position myself to be a good student athlete. And then, all my life I've been from camps to schools to wherever to talk to young people, because I think this is important, because it was a struggle for me,
Right.
not being aware of the process.
Right.
And so if you can help people avoid obstacles, by telling them, now it's up to them. The ball's in their court when you tell them that these are the things that you need to do in order to be successful, or a successful student athlete. These are the things that you need to, focus on. Right. And another thing, I want to thank Hugo for connecting us again.
Yes, a mutual
Yeah.
friend of ours. He had me speak, Lowe's, at Mount Vernon High School I think it was about 3 years ago, for Bobby Semino and the kids, and it went great. And Hugo's a great guy. I know he's a good friend of yours and a mutual friend of ours. And so I have to thank him too for, helping me become a guest on the show tonight. We're all going to have to get together. I have you scouted, Lowe's. I know one of your places is the Bayou, I believe. I think you like the Bayou.
Oh, the Bayou.
Yes.
Yeah, up here in Mount Vernon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Hugo's probably in there more than me.
So we have to take you to dinner there because I know that's one of your spots. Although we have to check with your wife to find out what she likes, and maybe we'll go somewhere that
she likes the Bayou too.
Okay.
Probably more than me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this coach, this is good. Because we sit back and we watch games, whether it be high school, college, or pros, and sometimes we just, I went to a number of Monterey High School games this year. I mean,
Right.
even up through the playoffs, and I've seen a number of college games. Between television and and of course my daughter's coaching in college, so I've been to a number. And one of the things is that as we come to this close, man, is that people talk a little bit about these student athletes, man. That there's a lot of pressure on them to be good or great.
There's no, you know what, Lowe's, there's no doubt about that. I tell you, it's not easy for young people today with that. I think sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes the parents can be too, over the top or overwhelming or put too much, pressure on their children without them even realizing it. Years and years and years ago, Mr. Garfinkel used to have a great line from 5-Star. He used to say that he always said, Gonzo, kids should go one level below where the parents think they should go because parents can't be objective with their own children. And he goes, and sometimes they have to go, or they should go one level below where they think they should go because kids always think they're better than they are, but 2 levels below where the parents think they should go because parents can't be objective with their own kids. Now, I'm not saying that all parents, are that way, but I think one of the things that parents need to check themselves on is, it's good to have, first of all, you want parents to care, the fact that they go to games and they're involved. That's big. I mean, I came at a time, as you know, Lowe's, there was a time where I saw kids that I saw kids in Harlem and the South Bronx when I was coaching at Rice and Talentine with kids that had never gone to a basketball camp in their life. No one had sent them to a camp because either they just didn't have the money, they didn't have the time, the parents didn't know, no one cared, there wasn't no one around. So the first thing is you want parents, of course, to be involved. So I don't want to knock them for being involved with their kids because I think that's huge. But on the other hand, you want them to they have to kind of learn their place where, you should let the coaches coach and let the teachers teach and let you be the fan and, that kind of thing.
I had to learn that.
Because I think that's important, Lowe's. I see parents putting pressure on kids. And I think that's really hard because when it's coming from home, kids will feel if they don't make the pros or something, or they don't get a scholarship, they're a failure. And that's a hard thing, man. So that's one thing I would mention. And then I think just in general, the one thing I would leave, the best advice, I was looking at your questions, Lowe's, that you sent me, which were outstanding questions, by the way, at the end of the thing here. I looked on my phone and one of the things you said was, what advice, could you give, and one of the things I want to make sure I say, Lowe's, before we get off, and I hope, I know I talked a lot about basketball. I'm a fast talker, and so I hope people out there are New Yorkers and they understood me because I talk so fast. But what I was going to say is, for young people, one of the things I learned at a young age is somebody told me, and I never forgot it, and it was incredible advice, which is they said, try to figure out what you love to do, and then try to figure out how to do that thing you love and make a living at it. Now, it's not always easy to do that because maybe you want to be an artist, or you want to be a singer, or you want to be something that it doesn't pay a lot of money. And so it's hard to make a living, even though you love this area. So maybe you could try to teach that area or something. So what I'm saying is, like in basketball, for me, if I couldn't play in the pros, then I became a coach, and then now I'm scouting. And so I was able to travel, see the world. A lot of things that happened for me in my lifetime came from basketball. But the point is that I feel like I never really worked for a living the last 25 years, 30 years, because I'm in basketball. So I'm doing something I love. So I don't see it I barely even see it as a job because I'm doing something I love. So for the young people out there, if you can figure out what it is that you love to do, and then try to figure out eventually how can you make a living at it, And like Lowe's, one of the things he's doing, he's involved with basketball. He's doing a podcast, but he's also giving back to young people. He loves to be around young people. He's giving back. He's helping athletes. He's helping players at Mount Vernon because he did that as a player, as an athlete. So these are things that I hope young people, think about from this conversation tonight, Lowe's. I hope that, that can help. And again, I just think that, you have to dream big, like, again, I wanted to be in the NBA. I didn't make it as a player, but I made it as a scout, So, I think that's a very important thing. You still have to dream big. You can't, sell yourself short and settle, there's always, great things out there for people to get done.
Right. Coaches, it says, Coach, tells us trying is failing. You do it or you don't.
I would say no. I would say trying to do it is not failing. I would say that, like Lowe said earlier, you always miss 100% of the shots you don't take. In other words, you got to go down swing. You got to try. You got to fight. You got to try. I mean, here's another thing I used to tell our players, and it's pretty simple. I used to say, look, if you work hard, you have a good chance to do some really good things. I can't guarantee you what will happen if you work hard. I can't guarantee you you'll win. I can't guarantee you you'll make the NBA. I can't guarantee you you'll be rich. But I can tell you this: if you don't work hard, you have no chance to make it. That's the one thing I can tell you. So if you look at it that way, like if you work hard, you have a chance to make it and a chance to do great things. If you don't work hard, I can pretty much tell you you're probably not going to get too far. I mean, that's just a fact. So that's how I want to say it. I hope I wasn't misunderstood.
Yeah. Nah, Coach, great. I want to say thank you, man, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're about to get heated up here now. You're about to get rolling. Yeah, and you got to go out there and evaluate all these players, and take the Detroit Pistons to its next level. We got to get them back to the glory days.
Well, that's right. And let me mention that real quick, Lois. We have a fantastic general manager named Troy Weaver, who's a DC guy. He was the guy. We go way back to grassroots days. He was assistant at Syracuse. He recruited Carmelo Anthony, and then he got into NBA. He worked for the Utah Jazz. He helped get Paul Millsap and some of the guys out there. Then he was with Oklahoma City Thunder. He's one of the guys that helped Sam Presti. He was there for 11 years. He's the assistant GM. He helped draft, Russell Westbrook and some of these guys. And now he's the GM of Detroit Pistons. That's who hired me. He's a wonderful human being, Troy. Great person, great GM. He got Cade Cunningham last year, of course. We got lucky. We got the number one pick in the draft. We're going to get another lottery pick this year. Of course, I can't go into too many things because NBA has certain rules of things I can't talk about. But you guys will see the draft It's June 22nd, I believe, or 23rd, right in there. And, we're not very good yet. We have a great coach in Dwayne Casey, but I think we're young. We're going to get good. And we got some great young players like Sadiq Bey from Villanova. And so I want to make sure I give us, Detroit Pistons a little shout out here at the end also, because I know I didn't talk a lot about our team or our GM or our program.
Well, yeah, Coach. I want to say thank you, man, for again taking the time and jumping on here with me. And I want to just mention, Coach, as you know, coaching is changing.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And Casey is one of the best.
Absolutely.
He's very good at managing these young players today, man. He's a great role model, and man, he's truly amazing. So
agreed.
We want to wish you luck.
Lowe's, thank you and your
this
wife.
Year's draft.
I want to thank you and Patrice for having me and all the Mount Vernon community. I'm a huge Mount Vernon Knights fan, so I want to make sure everyone knows that.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Coach. Hold on for a second. I'm going to close out here, and then we'll talk for a moment.
You got it, Lowe's.
So I want to thank everybody for coming on. Thank you for your support of the Blueprint Podcast, and don't forget. When was the last time, Lowe's Moore, you visited Mount Vernon High School? Okay, last week. Yeah, I go swimming there, at least once or twice a week. And if somebody's in the gym, I always run in there and check out and say hello, especially if I hear a ball bouncing. Even if I don't hear a ball bouncing, I just love going in there. I mean, I still got my piece of the floor when I played over there in the corner. So I love Mount Vernon. And as you know, they won a state championship again this year, right? And we're looking forward to next year. So
There's another question.
got another question.
This is for you now. Here it is.
Oh, would you love to have as a special speaker at a seminar for young men at a high school in the Bronx? If possible, of course. I love talking to young people. That's what I do. Somebody talked to me when I was young. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if all those people hadn't come to the Boys and Girls Club, to the school, to my classes, speaking into my life, man. Yeah, that would be my pleasure. Definitely be my pleasure.
How do they reach you?
Well, hit me up on Messenger. On Lowe's Moore. I think Lowe's Moore Jr. on Messenger. Hit me up. Or send me a friend request on Facebook. And we'll make that happen. Yeah. So again,
Coach Hugo has a contact.
Coach Hugo has. Okay, I'll reach out to Hugo. I'll do that without a doubt. Hugo knows everybody, man. He like the mayor of the world. He ain't the mayor of a city. He's the mayor of the whole world, Oh, man. Let me say this about Hugo, man. If y'all feeling sad, down and out, man, you can never talk to Hugo and come away feeling bad, because he's going to make you feel good when it's all said and done. So, again, thank you, everyone. Love you guys. God bless you. Julius Allen, what's up, man? Man, we go way back. Oh, man. So God bless you guys. Look forward to see you next week on the Blueprint Podcast.
See you next week.
Oh, next week, Isaiah Cousins. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to Isaiah, man. Yeah, because back in the day, Isaiah didn't used to do a whole lot of talking. But now he talking. Yeah, so we going to have a good time next week. There you go. God bless you guys.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's Moore, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's Moore and on Facebook at Lowe's Moore Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.